Welcome everyone to yet another episode of Drunk Agile. With us, as always, is the star of the show. She's so disgusted with us she can't even look at us this evening. Nisha, hello, Nisha.
After the last episode, she was like, "No."
Yeah, we'll get to that last episode here in just a second. And then with me, as always, my partner in crime,
Prateek Singh.
And my name is Daniel Vicanti. Welcome everyone. Prateek, what are you drinking? Because we're gonna need lots of drinks.
Yeah, I think it had been a while since, except for the last time when your Aberfeldy had been brought on. It had been a while since we've been doing scotches. Mostly it had been whiskey with an ease. Back to the Glendronach, batch 8, 61%.
That's getting dangerously low.
Yeah.
So because I'm kind of low on my stash here, I went back to the Aberfeldy that I think you did last time. So 57.2%, single cask, bourbon. I think it's a bourbon aged. So
it's a sherry.
How did I say? It was 2001. So what does that make it? Is that 20?
20? Yeah, 2021 minus 2001 is 20.
I don't know. I'm out of fingers and toes at that point. So yeah, don't go there. So all right. So cheers everybody. It's going to be a fun one tonight. Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer before we get started. Last week's episode, assuming that we are doing these in order, which I think we will, was all about starting the conversation around building bridges to different communities, specifically the SAFe community, because I do fundamentally, and maybe I don't want to speak for you, Prateek, you can say whether you agree or not, but I do fundamentally believe that no one methodology, no one framework, no one approach has all the monopoly and all the best answers. So I think actually starting those conversations and building that common ground is actually very, 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 very important. Having said that, there does come a point at which, I think certain things need to get called out for the, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Or to be fair and balanced,
and just try and bring Drunk Agile back to its roots, our curmudgeonly roots, our provocative roots, our, hopefully
Slatter and Waldorf roots.
Yeah. So Prateek, this is all kind of cagey. What are we really talking about tonight?
Yeah, well, so today what we're really talking about is again the conversation we started last week, where we started talking to you all about how flow is becoming more and more part of SAFe. Today we're actually going to do a deep dive into the metrics of flow that have been incorporated into SAFe or have been proposed as a part of SAFe. So we're literally going to talk through the 6 flow-related metrics that have been added.
Are there 6? You already counted? You did your homework.
I believe so.
So I am just going to share my screen very quickly. I want to make sure that I don't have anything else incriminating up before I do share this. So here we go. In case anyone's wondering,
all your research into story points is up.
Yeah. We're at scaledagileframework.com/metrics for anybody who wants to follow along at home. And we'll just kind of go through these, but again, I guess before we start, I do want to say that on a positive note, maybe the only positive thing we'll say tonight, on a positive note, at least SAFe is starting more toward that that flow orientation, which is it's hard to argue with that. I think you and I both believe in a flow approach, but I don't know why it's so hard to get the implementation of this stuff, because it's so easy. These things are so easy, and yet people screw it up, and they continue to screw it up. So let's, without any more banter, pre-banter anyway, let's start with the first one. Prateek, flow distribution.
Yeah, flow distribution, at least as it's described on the page that Dan just showed, is how much of each type of work is in your system at any given point of time. So graphing that out, how many bugs are you working at any point of time? How many features and how many enabler stories are you working on at any given point of time. That is flow distribution, the representation of that. I'm even
Done. You're speechless.
First, I don't know if that's really a metric.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think that the idea, I'm guessing, the idea is to kind of give the team the idea is to give the team an idea of what kind of work are we pushing our efforts towards? What's the distribution of the kind of work that we're taking on?
Shall I jump in and save you?
Yeah, please.
So I have to say, of all the ones that we're going to go through, this is the one that I probably have the least amount of problem with. But if I do have and I do have a problem with it, and you're going to hear me, I'm going to sound like a broken record all night tonight. But you're going to hear me say, my belief fundamentally with metrics. I mean, if you're proposing, somebody track a metric, for me, one of the fundamental things that metric has to do is provide actionable information. And I'm sorry, but flow distribution, and in my world, fails that litmus test. I can see maybe in some contexts where it does, but in a case like, for example, the 4 types that they have here are features, defects, risks, and enablers. But without knowing any more context around each one of these things, how do I know what a good mix is? And the last thing I almost say the last thing, one of the last things I would ever prescribe a team to do is say, okay, you always want to have 20% features and 10% defects,
right,
50%, because that's going to change, if not on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly basis. And in SAFe, we're probably talking about longer term horizons anyway. I mean, that's going to change. So I don't know. Did you think of what you wanted to say?
No, well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing for me with this one. It's more about, this is all looking backwards. This is all looking backwards and going, hey, we had planned on doing this kind of work. At least that's what I think it's useful for. Is we had planned on distributing our efforts in this manner. This is what actually ended up happening. Maybe there is some learning from that we can apply forward. And I'm completely with you on, there is. I don't think understanding the kind of work you've been doing results in changing the kinds of work you'll pick up. Because if most of your work you've been doing has been defect work, it's probably because you're putting a lot of defects out there and then you need to fix them. But it might inform your strategy a little bit to kind of go, hey, in the past we've thought we'll do all this feature work, but we have spent most of our time doing defect work. Maybe we shouldn't plan all this feature work because we spend a bunch of time doing defect work.
Yeah, potentially. So also, I'm not sure that this is really even, because to your point, you're not even sure this is a metric. I'm not even sure it's a flow metric, right? Even if we could agree on the metric part, I'm not even sure that it's the flow thing. So I personally don't have much more to say about it. Makes for a nice
description. Yeah, it's a nice description of what's been going on with the team. I don't know.
But I mean, the order is curious too. I mean, why they started with this?
Yeah,
this would be one of the very last things, if ever, that I would have a team track rather than one of those first things. All right. So that's flow distribution. I think we can both give that one a thumbs down. I don't know. Are we doing thumbs up? Thumbs across, maybe
60 degree down.
Okay. All right. So the next one is flow velocity.
Flow velocity.
Do you want to do this one?
No. This is gonna be fun. Now it gets fun.
Yeah.
So flow velocity, and I like the way the description of flow velocity starts. It's the number of backlog items completed in a given time frame, also known as system throughput, which is pretty much how we would describe throughput too. Whatever's your done mark, number of things passing over through there per day, per week, whatever that is. And I think as you read through it, most of it sounds okay to me, till you get to the graph on that page.
Let's show the graph. So hopefully this is centered on everybody's screen. Everybody can see this.
Yeah. Till you get to the graph on the page, and we've all of a sudden gone from talking about throughput to story points and velocity, and we have an average velocity running across, which is, I believe, the representation of flow velocity.
Yeah.
Please watch our story points episode. I think we spent half an hour on that.
Watch our story point episode. Watch our flaw of averages episode.
Yeah,
watch our. I mean, watch and like I said, this is. I think this is getting the crux of our frustration, of our joint frustration here is. I mean, the spirit is right, but then the examples and the implementation that they show is just horrible, and that lack of rigor drives me nuts. I mean, one further thing I would add to your analysis of that chart is they've got it mapped out by iterations.
Yep.
But you only track velocity. Well, I've got another thing I want to say about this, but you only track quote unquote velocity, at the iteration level. That's let's put too fine a point on it. Silly, ridiculous. Why you should be doing it probably as close to daily as possible. Again, depending, certainly depending on the context, right? But that reminded me, the other thing I wanted to say about this frustration, and I get that this is all part of the flow framework thing or whatever, but we have established terms for these items. Why are we changing the names? Why are we creating further confusion by changing the names of established concepts that everybody else in the world uses and understands, just to make sure we get that flow word and everything? I mean, please.
And just to double down on that point, these aren't established software industry terms. These are just established flow metrics. I mean, everyone, whether you're working in software or not, if you've encountered flow, studied flow, these are the things you refer to. You go, throughput is this. We don't need to kind of reinvent what throughput means. Yep.
Which I think is going to be a nice conversation for. It's probably going to be our next episode. The whole, do we call it cycle time? Do we call it lead time? I think that'll probably be our next episode. So remind.
I'll write it down on that whiteboard.
On the whiteboard, and then we'll release it. But yes, this whole renaming things, just to have. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. I understand it on several levels. If I was being snarky, there would be some other things I'd say as to why they're doing it. But I mean, come on. They even say, like you said in that first sentence, they're like, hey, this is throughput. Well, this throughput called throughput, right? I mean,
throughput has nothing to do with story points.
Yep. Don't show story points, and don't show averages. That's okay. Next one. We're only two into this. I'm gonna need a refill.
I know. This is your favorite.
Well, so we're done with flow velocity, right?
I mean, we might come back to it, but I think we're done now.
As my wife would say, we've kicked the arse out of that one. So, all right, my favorite. What you want to? Would you like to introduce this next one?
Sure. So, Dan, what do you think about this new revolutionary metric called flow time? It's the elapsed time from when an item enters the system to the moment it's delivered to the customer. Yeah.
So
and I would like to get your special opinion on how flow time has been portrayed, how it's been displayed.
We'll get there. we'll for sure get there. Yeah, so again, being, I don't even know where to start. Whether it's the prescriptiveness of the, of the definition So if you go back and we've done episodes on flow metrics. So if you could please go back and watch our episode and the thing that we like to emphasize is for your context, you get to decide what the start point in your process is and what the finish point in your process is. That's for you to decide. That's for no one else to decide. That's not for any framework to come along and decide. That's not for any other consultant to come along and decide. That's for you to decide. What does start mean and what does finish mean? It might very well be, finish might very well be when we hand it off our customer. Great. It might not be, and that's okay, and that's perfectly okay. So number one, the prescriptiveness of what we're supposed to be measuring there, just as you can tell, gets under my skin. But then again, even if we can get past that, which to me that's potentially a forgivable error because kudos from wanting to take a look at it from the perspective of the customer. Okay, great. Okay, so if that's forgivable, what is unforgivable by far? As Prateek said, and as all of you probably watching at home can guess, what's unforgivable is how they portray it. And they've got, I can't even say it, Prateek. What is this? What is that H word?
It says it right there. It's a histogram.
Yeah. And Prateek is a vet tonight, by the way, just in case everyone can see that. A histogram, and which is, as we have explained ad nauseum, I think on this podcast, on this whatever you want to call it, a histogram is probably the worst way to represent time series data. I mean, it's just, we've known this for literally 100 years. It has been known. You do not show time series data in a histogram, and yet here it is. We're showing cycle time data, flow time data in a histogram, and once again, we have the average right on there.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably say this with every metric we cover today. I mean, good on them to go towards flow and get a metric that talks about flow. But unfortunately, you talk about flow and a metric for flow, and then just take a quick right turn showing a histogram and a flow time, average flow time or whatever, and sort of misleading people into a direction where, again, with the amount of reach that SAFe has, because SAFe has a huge reach, probably bigger than, except for Scrum, I'm guessing bigger than any other method. All these folks being introduced to flow metrics, but then being led astray by the depictions of histograms and averages.
Go ahead.
I had a question for you. In the
wait, sorry, before we get there, but remember your question. Do you remember Rain Man? Do you remember what episode we covered the histogram so we can tell people to go?
I think it was called Because Math. I think that was the name of the episode. I don't remember the number of the episode. Should be in the 20s, but it's called Because Math.
Go look that up. If you want to know why histograms are just bad, go look that up. Sorry, your question now.
So in the definition of what's called flow time, there's a distinction between flow time and total lead time. Do you want to spend any time on that, or do you want to wait till the next episode to spend a whole lot of time on that?
I think that's a good one for the next episode.
Yeah. So
again, we're making a distinction where one is not needed. But yeah,
so come back next time to find out that this is why we should or should not make a distinction between cycle time, flow time, and lead time.
Yep. Right. I don't have anything else to say about flow time. Do you? Yeah.
Nothing that would make me feel any better.
Okay. All right. Actually, I just read this last sentence. The shorter the flow time, the less time our customers spend waiting for new features. Okay. And the lower the cost of delay incurred by the organization.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, that's not. Let's just not. Now, what there is a good point hidden in there, which I think we mentioned it not the last episode, but the previous couple of episodes. especially when we're talking about features, which might be sets of stories. If you are tracking these flow metrics, not necessarily these flow metrics, it is pretty important to track that at the feature level. So there is a good point hidden in there that says, measure flow time, cycle time at the feature level, so that you can actually find out how long customers are waiting for something.
But just one more time for the people in the cheap seats, cost of delay is not dependent on how fast you deliver. It is not. Anyway, okay. Next one. And please leave us a comment for this next one. I'd love to know what image comes to mind when you hear the term flow load.
This has okay. At worst, this has been a PG-13 podcast.
I mean, honestly.
Anyway.
Probably the cleanest thing I could say is it sounds like a backed up toilet to me. That's what it.
Load.
That's the nicest thing I think I can say. But so Prateek, tell us about your flow load.
Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and we'll get to the picture in a bit of what they're using to describe flow load. But essentially, what they're trying to say is, flow load gives an idea of how many work items are in each of the stages of your process at any given point of time.
It's measuring WIP. That's
it's
the way that I'm
measuring WIP.
Yeah,
it's measuring WIP by process stage, and the most common image used for that is a cumulative flow diagram, which is.
I'll share my screen. So
I would love to say that that's a cumulative flow diagram, but Dan, either you can answer that, or we can leave the exercise up to the user.
Well, I think as always, we'll leave it as an exercise for the reader. Why this is not a cumulative flow diagram, and that's again, that's what frustrates me, I think, the most as we go through these. Even if you can forgive some of these other mistakes, like naming, how they show it is just, I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. It's wrong. It's wrong. This is not a cumulative flow diagram. So why would you invest the time to introduce these types of metrics, but then get their implementation wrong? That it makes absolutely no sense to me.
And maybe I'm not understanding the legend on the, not the legend, but the axis on the diagram, but they seem to be by iteration as opposed to by day or whatever. It wasn't continuous for sure, it looked like.
Yeah, and that's potentially okay, again, depending, because we obviously don't have the numbers, we don't have the data that this was done. So it's potentially okay how they did it, but the astute reader or the astute viewer will very quickly understand why we say that's not a cumulative flow diagram, even though they call it a cumulative flow diagram. Not to mention their legend's backward. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, it's
reversed.
So maybe it's weird. I was gonna say maybe it's the whole thing of looking at the board right to left, but I don't know.
There's a sentence here: increasing flow load is a leading indicator of excess work in process.
Doesn't that just mean you ate something funny?
Increasing, I'll say that again. Increasing flow load is a leading indicator of excess work in process. Okay.
Just so everyone understand, literally is WIP.
Yeah, it's not a leading. It is.
It is. It just so.
Anyway, okay. All right. Now we come to my favorite.
Yeah.
We come to my
favorite.
Was
that episode 1? That was episode 1.
Was it episode? Oh yeah, but I think that was where I think where we got the drunkest, because we had to be. I mean, and again, this is not, I think we talked about in that episode, this is not a metric, this is a calculation. It's not a metric at all. But the absolute in all of the Kanban canon, I guess I would say, in all of the flow canon, the absolute worst metric Can I be that strong? Can I say it's the worst? I'm going to go out on a limb. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. Leave us a comment or something. But for me, the absolute worst metric by far, it's not even close, is flow efficiency. Terrible, 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 terrible calculation. It's not. It's. I don't know, Prateek. I don't know. You talk to them.
Yeah. Again, refer you to episode 1 for efficiency. We went really deep into it, and that's where the problem, the bigger problem we have is it doesn't really tell you much. It doesn't, and even if it does tell you something, there are simpler, much easier ways to kind of go in and work through the problems that flow efficiency is revealing for you. There was actually, last week I had a conversation with the manager who was talking about, I want my flow efficiency to be 85% or above. So I go once a month to calculate flow efficiency. And if it's below that, I do something. If it's not, then, and way at least I don't know Dan, what you think about it, is the way I pointed it to him was, why don't you just do it on a daily basis? Make sure 85% of your cards on your board are not waiting on anything.
Yeah.
And that'll just do it. You don't have to worry about
that. And that's the TLDR, I think, of the first episode is trash, just trash flow efficiency. Just stop it. Stop. And replace it with aging. Right. Yeah. Not only is aging better than flow efficiency, it'll give you so much more information. Because to your point, just because your flow efficiency goes up doesn't necessarily mean your processes got better. It's actually very easy for your flow efficiency to go up and your cycle and it take longer to get things done. Your cycle times to go up. That's very easy. It's also very easy for your flow efficiency to go down, but things get better. Those are two very, very, very common situations. And the third, I keep saying the word litmus test, but the third litmus test for me for flow efficiency is your customer couldn't care less.
Yep.
About your flow efficiency, could not care less, unless your cycle times are taking too long, which you would uncover much more quickly by monitoring aging. So
yeah, you can easily make your work items a lot bigger and hide your flow efficiency in.
Well, let's just not put our stuff in any wait states too.
Yeah.
Let's not ever mark them as blocked. Look at that. We've got 85% flow efficiency there. The manager is happy. Okay, this last one, Prateek, you said you wanted this last one. Flow predictability. Talk to me about flow predictability, Prateek. Or not.
I think so. I think Dan, you and I spent, I would guess, about 2 to 3 months playing with different measures of predictability, kind of trying to figure out how can we quantify it. And at some point, we just gave up, I think, trying to figure that out. And while doing all that, we played with some fancy stuff. But throughout all that, we never, ever tried to figure out how many points of business value were being estimated and then delivered. And it's this one literally for me is turtles all the way down and broken turtles all the way down. It's building business value points on top of story points or estimate points, estimation points, business value, and then comparing delivered estimated pointed business value to what we planned as estimated pointed business value. I do not believe that this measure gives you absolutely anything. Even if you are at 100% of this, how do you know you're actually solving the customer's problem? How do you know that you're going to continue to be predictable? I think this is the others are at least based somewhat in flow principles. This has absolutely no basis in any flow principles, at least that I know of.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hate when I agree with you, and I hate when it's recorded when I agree with you, but absolutely agree, because intrinsic, and we say this all the time on this program, intrinsic to any forecast, and a plan is a forecast, intrinsic to any forecast has to be a communication of risk. You are never, and I can say never here, never planning at 100%, right? The fact that there is uncertainty, involved means that you will never get to 100%. Never, never, never. So part of the forecast has to be risk. So if you're planning, say, to the 85th percentile, then by definition, you should expect that you're only getting about 80, potentially 85% of the stuff. You're only going to be right. I should say you're only going to be right 85% of the time. Right. I mean, that's kind of by definition, and then to your point, just because we missed that doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. It doesn't mean that our planning was bad. It doesn't mean that our efforts were bad. This is I don't know if we've ever talked about this one. The difference between
the whole resulting conversation.
Well, yeah, and dovetailed into that is, how do I know whether I had a bad forecast versus I just got unlucky? But I mean, those types of conversations come into play, at that point. And the fact that we said we were going to do 100 story points and only delivered 50, again, as Prateek was saying, because there's no actionable information.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and I just noticed this in the visual that they have as I was looking at it, and I'm not a violent person. I totally am not. Some things make me want to punch people, but I'm not a violent person in general. But this is kind of.
Prateek, he's so nice. He's so nice.
Not only are we doing the whole estimate point business value, compare actuals to estimated things. The other thing that's happening here is it's being measured as far as I can see, at the release train level, which means we're averaging multiple teams to figure out if our estimates meet our actuals. I think some of the other ones were egregious because we're renaming known flow concepts, or we're talking about them properly, but then showing visuals that completely lead people astray. This is the most criminal of them all, in my opinion, because it's not based in flow concepts, and it's just, again, broken turtles all the way down in multiple reasons.
Yeah, we could probably spend a whole episode on this one, because as you were talking through that, the thing that I just noticed is they're talking about in control versus out of control process.
Yes.
And they've got this magic green area that says, hey, if you're here, you're in control, versus if you're not, you're.
Yeah, we don't know if we can get Dr. Wheeler on for this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think Short and Deming would have a lot to say, about that. But anyway, I don't know. Do we need to beat this one anymore? I don't.
I don't think so. I think.
Yep. So yeah, long story short, just like flow distribution, we started off with something that probably has really no basis in flow, and I think we're finishing with one that has has no basis in flow. If anybody's interested, you can still keep scrolling on that page, and then they introduce again with their visuals. Their visuals are just terrible. The spider charts, which everybody knows is, from a visualization perspective, just one of the worst visualizations you can have.
As you were saying that, I'm just trying to think, when is a spider chart a good visualization for anything? I cannot even. I don't know.
It never is. I used to have a link to this wonderful article that talked about all the problems with, and it was really long article about all the problems with spider charts. But I mean, they're just some things that you just never use in life, and one of those is a spider chart. The other is obviously averages when we're talking about forecasting.
Yeah,
that's
or histograms for time series data,
Yeah.
or
Or
certain things being called cumulative flow diagrams.
Anything else? I mean, if you were to sum up as we go through this, what would you say?
I think we've said this a few times, and again, I don't want to give up on the building bridges conversations that we've been having, but I think it starts, most of these, definitely not all of them, most of them, start in the right place, where we're trying to bring in things like cycle time, throughput, WIP, into the conversation. But the way they're explained and the visuals that go with them, especially the visuals that go with them, I think it defeats the purpose. It actually makes it worse than is intended. I think just like I personally believe story points set us back multiple years, and I think Dan, you tweeted that a few years ago too, that set the industry back quite a bit. I think unfortunately this attempt to move forward might end up setting us back in understanding of flow across the board for the industry quite a few years.
I'm going to agree with you twice in one episode. This has got to be a first, I think.
Yeah. Misha's getting a treat today.
I know, but yeah, I mean, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, we want people to understand these concepts, yet we are handcuffing them. You know, we're tripping them up right at the start by not explaining it properly, by not showing it properly. You know, by not giving us proper visuals. You know, and I mean, the thing is, if we're talking about work in progress, call it work in progress. If we're talking about throughput, call it throughput. I mean, that alone.
Yeah, and that gives people the ability to go out and research this and read Reinerson and you know, read Stewart and read Deming and kind of get an idea on the stuff from the experts, rather than, you know, if someone goes and searches for flow time, they're going to end up back on this page.
Yep, a flow load, God forbid. Yeah, exactly. And
I don't know where they're going to end up with that, but yeah.
We are getting ahead of ourselves, because that's going to be the crux of my argument against, you know, the whole cycle time versus lead time thing is, yeah, when I go point people to external resources, you know, they're going to spend half their time saying, well, Reinerson says this, Reinerson calls it this, Dr. Little calls it this, you know, and then, you know, I'm going to cause them more confusion, because now they're having to map back, you know, to multiple concepts. So anyway, that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We'll talk a lot more about that next time.
Yeah, and I'll just to add one more thing to that conversation is the reason we say it's going to set us back is the whole behavior science argument of anchoring. People are going to get anchored into these definitions, and these visuals, which don't represent what these things should be, and getting people to move off of that, just like it has been such a struggle to get people to move off of story points, is going to be a struggle again to get people to move off of these visuals, where these visuals are pointing them.
Everybody's going to think, oh yeah, it's natural, because SAFe shows cycle times, flow times in a histogram. So that's how we're supposed to look at it. We're supposed to look at
and there's an average on that. So
we'll talk about averages. Yeah. So thank you, Prateek, for that last word. Leave us a comment. What do you think? What do you think about this? Do you think, are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, that SAFe is choosing to present these metrics, these supposed flow metrics, you know, in this way, or are we just, I don't know, getting drunk for no reason? I don't know if you ever say that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. For Nisha in the background there she goes. Hi, Nisha. Hey, sweetie. Yep. All right. Somebody say treat. Somebody said treat.
A treat.
For Nisha, for my friend and colleague Prateek Singh, my name is Daniel Vacanti. Hope you enjoyed this longer episode, this little slightly longer episode of Drunk Agile, and we will see you in the next video. Good night, everybody.
Take care.